Jace being off the table, Rumble, some of the big picks. Oh, Rumble actually still open. I stand corrected. Usually banned in the second phase. Perhaps this is something that KOI will look to prioritize.
It feels like you need to find some way to shut down the side lane potential from G2, and we even heard Melza talk about it after drafting, coming into game number 2, that is kind of the goal that they've had, but they haven't really been successful at it. And at least now with things like the Ahri being taken off the board and the Talia, these are kind of the two premier, I'll say, side lane players from the mid lane, or at least when it comes to control mages. So I'm curious if that helps MKOI a little bit, or whether Caps has something else up his sleeve.
So, Kalista, Nico, Lucian, Vi, and Maokai are first 5 bans. We'll see where G2 decide to round things out. Yone, the most obvious one, I think, that we have seen banned out in the majority of the series so far. G2 taking their time over this final ban as they took their time in game 2. MKOI have shown us some really strong signs of life throughout this day, but haven't really been able to find that nail in the coffin moment as G2 have been able to manufacture. Rakan, the final ban, so Yone is up and available. G2 kind of offering it out to MKOI, saying, hey, you want to take this? We know how we're going to answer.
Oh, the Kai'Sa immediate lock-in from KOI. Obviously, fantastic at dive, being able to outplay AD carries. Xayah, I think, immediately rises in priority for Hans Summer. A great self-defense AD carry that just typically does well into many dive champions. Xin Zhao, something that Dagda's been talking consistently about throughout the series, has been left open, and I wonder if this is something that KOI will look to try and prioritize.
I don't think the blind Braum is the way, though, because you can still end up opting in towards a lot of supportive chance
the
on the
way.
bottom side. Yeah, because
apparently it's the way.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, because a lot of the engaged champions are already taken off the board, right? You already got the 4 that were already played this, but Nico being gone as well, Rakan being taken off the board. It's a little surprising. It also means that then, to me, it says Broken Blade is more than likely going to be trying to go towards something like the Ornn, because you still want that engage tool. Unless we're looking at Caps going for something like a Galio in the mid lane, and SkewMond going to be on something that's a little bit more dive orientated. But even that is kind of taken off the board unless you're looking at a Jarvan.
Well, there is the Xayah that we saw Hans Sam have a great performance on a couple of days ago. Alongside the Braum, a lot of safety in that bot lane, but not a huge amount of engage. So G2 will be looking for that in other spots like the Ornn, as you said. Yone is still available. Obviously, with his most recent changes, the fact that you can CC him and it still connects when he snaps back is a little bit weaker than it once was, but Yone locked in now, expected for Jojo. Sejuani, as you say, a very good option to team up alongside it because of that melee synergy.
But I think Xayah already is just such a great pick into this, and the Rumble. Okay, this is...
Yeah, it's a dive comp.
Like, that's those are some power picks on the side of KOI. Yone, Rumble are champions that typically permaban away around the world. They're just champions that you do not want to be seeing on the Rift, and G2 is saying, you know what, I think we're fine. They're going to be trying to respond with a Gwen for Broken Blade in the top lane.
Gwen strong into the Rumble, because when she got nerfed, it was her armor that was hit rather than the magic resist, so she can still do relatively well into the Rumble in that matchup. But I think if I'm looking at MKOI, I'd probably look for some sort of poppy ban, even if you want to send it towards SkewMond in the jungle. I think you end up with just so much utility from that, with the amount of potential dive and potential dashes that are on MKOI's side. It does mean that your engage is slightly lacking, but MKOI already look like they're just going to be playing for a very heavy dive, and you can see the Sejuani taken off the board, that facilitator already gone.
You know, I was actually thinking that they were going to leave Sejuani open and then slam a Trundle.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Because I think Trundle is great into Yone as well. But also, I just think Trundle's been super impressive in our playoffs so far. But the Sejuani will be banned away, and I think it just, as a champion, synergizes really well with both Yone and Rumble. So it makes sense that G2 will want to take that one away. Akali going to be taken away from Caps. The Jarvan being banned by SkewMond is a little bit surprising. That was a champion I thought that they might go in the direction of, but they really just want to remove some of the hard engage options that Elyoya would consider.
MKOI looking for their final ban, can still focus it towards the mid lane to try and give Jojo a slightly easier matchup into Caps. Aurora is the choice. It's a lot of AP if you are going Aurora Gwen. I guess Xayah gives you enough physical damage. G2 likely to pick their jungle here. Can of course go mid and then leave jungle for last.
I think that they will go mid. I think they want to keep the Trundle option open. Also the Poppy that Dagda, or one of you two was talking about earlier.
Yeah, Rob was.
Yeah, I think... Oh,
they're just going to slam it. Maybe to... Because Skarner was the next pick I was thinking of that they would be thinking of. So maybe they're just saying, go ahead, pick your Skarner. Because now, like, what dive, jungle, do you... Like, Zhao, maybe?
Yeah.
Do you pivot into Zyra, and then you just go, hey, we're going to try and play at range here and look
Elyoya.
for poke? Yeah, Lilia, even in Italy or something like that could work out as well, and just say, hey, we're not actually going to play into this more, because Kai'Sa can always kind of change shape into, hey, we're going to go for a bit more poke orientated. Rumble with that ultimate can do it. Lillian now too, so it's a bit of a pivot for MKOI. But
for Trundle?
Yeah, I was going to say it's not great, and also it's kind of hard for the only issue for MKOI is you are quite AP heavy.
Oh yeah.
But at least you have the Yone to try and facilitate some change in that.
They also have no engage. Are there any support? Because Rakan's banned.
Leona, Nautilus, Rell, Alistair are all gone.
Gragas?
Yeah. Renata, okay.
Renata is the pick.
So I wonder then if they are just going to go a ton of poke and just go, hey, even like if we do go AP Kai'Sa, there's no true tank on G2 side, so you can go like Spirit Visage second as Trundle, but it's not the best, and just trying to abuse the fact that everything is pretty short range on G2.
These comps are a bit weird.
They are.
They're very weird, yeah.
Some of the things that I would expect from KOI, normally when you have Kai'Sa Yone as your priority, you know, we were already talking a lot about the dive, and then Rumble also complements that they wanted to prioritize because they knew that G2 would ban it in the second phase. But then, of course, G2 pinched their engaged jungle options, and with all the supports being removed, KOI just kind of lack the necessary CC to successfully dive, I kind of feel, at least on paper.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas G2, like, their engage also isn't the best. They've got a Braum, they've got Flash Annie. I think G2 have demonstrated that their side lane play has just been superior to KOI throughout this series. But when it comes to the 5v5s, I think that KOI have demonstrated that they can definitely go toe-to-toe with G2, even if it hasn't resulted in a win yet this series. I'm excited to see how things play out in this one, because blind picking a Trundle is very risky business. And I think the Lilia matchup can be very favorable for Elyoya, but will he be able to run away with a matchup like this?
Same could be said for blind picking a Braum. Renata into it can work incredibly well. MKOI, and a last chance to book a ticket straight to the finals into MSI for G2. One more win would be enough for them. Supa running the Ghost here on the Kai'Sa instead of going for the cleanse. Makes it a little tricky for him to survive if he does get CC'd. Obviously, you can go make KOs on Renata, but it's not the best.
I think the idea is that if he gets CC'd by Caps, he's dead already. There's just going to be so much damage, so he's like, look, if I can at least have the ability to ghost and play in and out of fights to try and avoid something, it'd be great. That's the spam starts. But,
please leave this lane of service, please.
But I was trying to like run through my head, it's like, how do you get value from the Renata ultimate? It's like decent for lane, but it's like, if Labrov is back, is using the Unbreakable to keep it. Yeah, but even then, it's like, Hansam has gone for the cleanse as well, so even if you do end up with him getting clipped, it doesn't really matter. Even if he gets slept, it doesn't really matter. I think this is going to be a very...
as well.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be a difficult game on both sides.
It'll be really interesting to see exactly how it goes down. I was about to say standard lanes to kick us off, but obviously, you know, lane swaps are very dead and buried until 4 minutes. There's still a small part of my brain that's like, ooh, they're playing 2v2 bot? Excellent. As Labrov and Hansama do not meet Supa and Alvaro. Supa and Alvaro sneak their way in towards the lane here. If you come from the top, what you can avoid is the initial bit of damage from Hansama and Labrov, meaning you actually get to the wave and then can try and chip them down as they try and get back behind their minions. And it's kind of what happened, you know. You see Alvaro and Supa did take a little bit of a chunk. Guardian on Alvaro here as well. Starts with the Oracles and gets a small World Atlas stack there from autoing on to Hansama.
Also a nice ward coming through from G2 as well onto the Raptors, just to spot out exactly what Elyoya's path is going to be. So I think though for MKOI, they're going to be taking it relatively easy in the early stages. It's not like you have great setup for Elyoya to get into any of these lanes. I think you'd be more trying to facilitate them being aggressive in their own right, especially for bot side, just allowing them to try and push into the range versus melee support matchup.
Broken Blade forcing Myrwn back, takes the tower shot though, and that basically evens out the trade. Myrwn should be able to get most of these underneath his tower. Dings over to level 2. The only time I think Elyoya is a little bit slower than Trundle in the jungle is on this first clear. After she starts to get a couple of items under her belt, she clears exceptionally quickly, as does Trundle, of course. But I think I would give that out to Elyoya after the first item.
Yeah, single target DPS versus the Shillelagh swing.
Yeah.
Not going to exactly work out great.
Jojo going in. Caps gets the stun immediately, forces Jojo back, who's using that shield a little bit to tank up some of the damage. But Caps on the right side of those trades. You can see Jojo going for the Doran shield first as well. He knows where his bread is buttered in this lane.
You definitely need to do that against an Annie. She is quite good at trading, especially just because she's more than happy to keep throwing auto attacks out to harass you as well. Put my eyes on how these lanes are going, and dangerous spot for Broken Blades.
But Broken Blade doesn't have flash. He only has exhaust. Myrwn just needs an order, but he can't get in range. Oh. Flash for exhaust the exchange. The problem for Myrwn here is that SkewMond is on the top side of the map, so he's just immediately going to back and then just TP back to the wave, but he is in a little bit of a precarious spot.
So Myrwn procs the phase rush, and he's thinking even through the exhaust. Oh, SkewMond set his sights on mid lane.
Actually put a ward around here as Jojo flashes away. Good pillar as well, Soul Seed from Elyoya, unable to connect.
But yeah, on the top side of the map, Myrwn had the... Why have I forgotten the name of it? The rune.
Phase rush?
Phase rush, thank you. The phase rush looked like it was actually going to get him in range, but then the exhaust kicks in, the phase rush wears off, and he then is slightly out of range. But you can see in these early trades, Rumble still very good at winning out on the 1 versus 1, and it's something that Broken Blade has to respect. The game, at a certain point, will likely swing in Broken Blade's favor, but until that point, he's just going to have to do what he can. But across the board, we kind of look at the bottom of our screen, and it's a very even affair, with the only real advantage being SkewMond securing the double scuttle.
You can see the pings though onto Elyoya on the map. G2 doing a decent job of tracking him. SkewMond kind of aware of, hey, top side is going to be respawning, so just be careful on this top half of the map. He's moving down to pick up his own bottom side, so I'm curious if we might get some sort of play towards Broken Blade if he continues to take a lot of damage from Myrwn, especially as the wave, it looks like it's bouncing back out.
I mean, it's definitely a risk. I think if SkewMond expects that to happen, he can just rush the Drake, right? One of the things Trundle is so good at is taking those neutrals early on, so could just go for it immediately. Instead has gone Gromp into his wolves and then will path up towards his top side.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like with the way the comps are a little bit strange, I'll say, I feel like getting this early gold and getting that early control is going to be way more valuable than the early dragons. Yeah. Especially because if you can get these leads, like Myrwn can now just continue to bully Broken Blade, or you can start to look for more, and even Elyoya is going to be looking for his own kind of CS advantages, because he just can't really interact with the lanes as easy as he would like. But if Broken Blade is super low, it becomes much easier to then continue putting pressure for Myrwn, and it looks like taking this topside jungle is going to be the answer to this split map we're seeing from the junglers and putting pressure on the Broken Blade once more.
Yeah, Broken Blade's still half a level away from 6. Might just have to back away here. Myrwn has 6 of his own. Elyoya is going to steal away the Krugs. SkewMond invades the other side to take away the Razor Beams.
I love the plan here from MKOI, just because of how it splits up the map and keeps the pressure up on the top side, just as Dagda was saying. Really put this Gwen behind, especially with no flash, and giving SkewMond the freedom to secure the Drake for himself.
I think it's also nice because realistically, diving Supa and Alvaro just is incredibly tough. With the heal, the bailout as well, it's not really going to be very, and you've no ignite either, so trying to get that kill onto the bottom side if you look for any sort of dive is never really going to be a thing, and you're just a quicker clear, as we already kind of alluded to. So Elyoya gets 2 camps on the top side, and they're going to be able to move in to get his Krugs, so it's just a good split map for Elyoya.
Yeah, so you're saying is that G2 can't respond? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That makes sense here.
SkewMond will take away the Drake. Went 2 points in Frozen Domain early here, something we do quite often see Trundle players do. Sometimes you even put 3 in just for the extra clear time throughout your jungle. Bot-side Scuttle has spawned for him, and he'll walk around, chomps it. Doesn't have Smite, whereas Elyoya does, but with Caps just around the corner. Well, looks like Elyoya might still poke his head in here to try and steal this away. Lanes have been swapped. Hansama going up towards the top side, with Broken Blade is down towards the bottom. Still only level 5. Could be a little bit of a precarious spot here for the G2 top laner and jungler, and they realize that and just give away the Scuttle Crab.
We'll see. Sorry, I mistook the supports for a second because I thought Alvaro had actually moved up towards the top side. Something he actually does a lot is covering for Myrwn, especially in these swaps, and kind of leaving Supa to free farm. He has grouped up with his jungler and Elyoya, now demonstrating what Lilia can do in this matchup. Trundle loves melee champions. where he can just trade auto attacks. He loves to brawl, as demonstrated in our opening teaser from League of Legends at the start of the year. He just likes to fight, hit you in the face, steal your stance. But Elyoya doesn't really let you do that.
Jojo misses the face shield here. Will get stunned up. Good handshake back onto Labrov, but he should just be able to stand beside Caps. Might just flash the wall. Instead, Caps walks across. Labrov jumps to Caps. Gets put to sleep. SkewMond's here as well. It's a big ultimate use. Does get the heal out. Supa trading with Broken Blade. He flashes over. As Broken Blade won't be able to hit any more of these needle works, so Supa expends both his cleanse and his flash to get away.
It's one of the things that is a little tough if you're a short-range AD carry trying to go against the Gwen. The fact you got the Hollow Shred and that skip and slash to very quickly close the distance without taking much damage from Jojo.
Caps immediately onto Jojo. Tibbers doesn't do too much by himself, but Caps is there with this Disintegrate to get the kill. Meanwhile, Alvaro's met up with SkewMond. Myrwn looking for the flank position here. Hansama working his way down from the top side. Alvaro not yet level 6. Frozen Domain down. He flashes over the wall. Hansama not going to flash to follow him. The Void Grub's taken by Elyoya, and he starts to walk out. Caps doesn't have that stun charged up. Labrov on the Equalizer flashes over the wall. Should survive through that burn. Escape from Elyoya. Clean enough, as even the pillar can't stop him.
I mean, it ultimately results in a solo kill for Caps as 3 grubs go in favor of MKOI. A relatively even trade as every member of KOI is able to get away with their lives. But that was a very scary situation that KOI found themselves in.
Also a plate for Broken Blade in the bottom lane. Able to pick up a little bit of gold to get himself back into this game. You can see he's only 50 behind Myrwn right now. Exhaust still on cooldown for him. Obviously using that in the fight against Supa earlier on, but he'll be very happy Myrwn didn't get anything out of that fighting around Void Grubs.
Still, it hasn't netted. Like, gold still relatively even.
Yep.
Very, very even action, in fact. And it hasn't really broken out this game into any which way. When we looked at the last couple of games, it was kind of like G2 at least getting some control in the early stage of game number 2, but looking maybe a gank in the top side that might change that.
And Myrwn doesn't have flash. SkewMond, you know, he's poking his nose in there, he's sniffing if there's anything good to find, but unable to do so. Labrov maybe caught out with the Swirl Seed. Hansama able to walk away, does have that Feather Storm. Lilting Lullaby up in 7 seconds time for Elyoya, so he's just waiting on that.
I do like the way MKOI are trying to play around Elyoya, though, because one of the things, actually, I think we ended up talking about on the desk yesterday was how Elyoya used to be a player that his team would play around. Now he's kind of changed into a role of much more of a facilitator for his lanes, but looking like on the Lilia, like it's back to old ways. He looks great on it, like constantly calling for Jojo to move across, having Alvaro working with him, looking to get invades and just put pressure down and starting to open up a nice little lead for himself.
Hasn't had the best of time on the Lilia across the course of his career. 2 wins, 5 losses. But last time he played it was last year in the season finals. Before that, all the way back in 2021. So it's been a little while since we've seen consistent Lilia from Elyoya. Jojo showing why Yone is still a very good champion. You can be stunned, just unbind your soul and then sprint at the enemy and hit a few auto attacks.
That's why Blade of the Ruined King is just so broken on him, because, I mean, I couldn't help but have a chuckle watching him just take the, like, I would say a short rotation from Caps. You know, he does the trade, gets the electrocute proc, and then you're kind of done. You know, that's kind of it. That's what you got. And then Yone's just like, I'm going to keep swinging my katanas at you, and best of luck. Caps, for now, seems fine in the matchup, but I don't think it's going to get easier as the game continues. It becomes a race of will he have enough damage to kind of near one-shot Jojo, which maybe on one item he will. I haven't watched enough Annie to be able to say so for sure. We'll see how things continue. For now, he goes back into the matchup. Oh, well, here we go.
Well, he's not able to kill off Jojo yet, but he gets him down to about half HP.
I mean, he didn't use Tibbers that time. I think one more rotation would actually be enough to kill Jojo, which is why Jojo now, yeah, he has to back. I think, so that's a good example of what I think you should see in that matchup. They basically trade HP, and then Cap says, well, if you're on 50%, I know I can one-shot you.
Labrov pulled back to the handshake as Elyoya is doing the Drake here. Teleport coming in from Jojo towards that top side, and as soon as G2 see it, they're thinking, well, can we take a fight around this Drake right now? Answer is not quite. Alvaro clipped. Caps goes in with the sun. Overheat on Myrwn. Glacial Fisher down, but Myrwn able to escape at the luxury of his rocket belt.
And this is kind of what we're talking about. It's that it's very difficult for both these teams to find that engage fully. You need Caps to really be that tool, and he does get a stun onto Myrwn, but there's just a little follow-up after there's no Glacial Bite that's there. So I think this is where you're going to have a little bit of an issue as G2. It's, I say, half easier for MKOI, because you do have at least the ferocity that you can try and connect with people if they're walking through choke points, but it's still not exactly the best of times to say.
It also feels like MKOI, when they hit the initial engage, whatever it is, they have a lot more follow-up, right? You have Fate Sealed, you've got Killer Instinct, you've got the Equalizer, you've got a bunch of stuff that you can lay on top of that. Whereas for G2, it's like, we've hit the initial engage, everyone run at this guy and try and kill him, right? And that could definitely work. Right, Trundle running in there, you can isolate someone really quickly with the pillar. As Broken Blade's a little bit isolated up towards the top side here. Only has that exhaust, gonna go drowsy. Even through the Hallow Mist, there's the Fate Sealed, and there's no real escape here for Broken Blade as Jojo chases him down. Even through the healing, it won't be enough. Elyoya gets the first kill of the game for MKOI.
Nice pick indeed. Broken Blade with no flash means that there's very little room for him to escape. KOI are gonna forego the play on the top lane for now, but we find ourselves in an early game that is very neutral. Herald will be the next point of contention. As first items are getting closer to being completed, you can see Jojo, he's about 700 gold, 600, 700 off that Blade of the Ruin King. And as we mentioned already, that is a very nice spike for him. So far though, I really feel like Elyoya is taking full control over the jungle matchup. Caps is doing fine in a side lane, but Jojo, once he gets that Blade, is going to be much scarier to deal with. The Rumble and the Kai'Sa are steadily getting up there, and right now we're just kind of waiting for that one moment that helps swing the game in either side's favor.
It really feels like a Rift Herald fight or a Dragon fight is going to decide this game, right? People having to face off for one of those objectives.
I think it's also just, at what point does Jojo start to move in towards like magic resist for the side lanes? Because you're either going up against Broken Blade or Caps, and I think when he gets to a point where, especially against Caps, he has like saying a Hex Drink or even a Wit's End or something, it's going to make it difficult for Caps, I think, to win that 1v1 anymore. But here we go.
Wait, he can kill Jojo.
He can kill Jojo, and he does that, and then flashes away from the Blooming Bursts and escapes Elyoya's clutches.
The only reason why I know is that is because, like, I learned the lesson the last time he killed Jojo, and I was just like, Jojo, I feel like you need to learn the lesson. Like, well played there by Caps, recognizing the damage output. He gets the kill, and now he's sitting on both kills for G2, and this Annie is quickly ramping up as the bot lanes find a bit of a skirmish, but it's Huntama that falls short in the health department.
The fact that Jojo went down as well is not only bad for himself, but also the fact that Trundle now gets to do the Rift Herald off the back. It was kind of the counterpunch from MKOI, although looks like he might just leave it be as they all show up.
Lily is still very speedy and moving across the map.
And Caps has TP and is about to finish his recall, so if G2 do want to fight it, they can TP him in, but he obviously doesn't have Tibbers, doesn't have his flash, doesn't really have that easy engage route, so MKOI should be able to take this Rift Herald without too much perturbation. Jojo waiting behind the tower in bot lane, seeing if perhaps he needs to move across, or at least not show on vision, because he doesn't have teleport. So as soon as he shows, G2 are like, oh, Jojo's not here, we can fight.
And you can see Caps was waiting in base as well. It was just like, look, if I need to TP, I can, but MKOI have to get the objective, which pretty big, especially after the little bit of a whoopsie that we had on the bottom side.
Right now, feels like the game state hasn't changed that much, even though Caps is a full level over Jojo in a side lane. Unfortunately, the really frustrating thing for Jojo is that he didn't have Blade on his death, right? Because now that whole spike is delayed and he's just going to be that much later into the game. He should have it in time for the next Dragon, but KOI could argue that they just don't really need to fight it if they don't want to. I have a feeling that they will, but we'll hold our breath and see. For now, it's Myrwn with the push in the top lane. He's going to be able to get an early bait. A very nice trade from him.
Yeah, Broken Blade skip and slashing in right into the flames. Myrwn should be able to push out this wave. Does have the teleport as well if there is a fight around the dragon in 10 seconds time. Broken Blade gonna base. Alvaro caught out with a Winter's Bite, but Elyoya's coming across. Labrov will stand beside his friend as Huntama goes in. Exhaust used in the top side as the needles come out from Broken Blade, but he doesn't connect onto Myrwn, who dodges away. TP as well from Broken Blade as he goes to top. Counter TP coming out from Caps. The equalizer dodged away from Jojo, will be able to get one, and he jumps out with the Fate Sealed. Rift Herald charging down the mid lane as well as Elyoya uses this moment to put it to work.
Oh, the pillar.
Pillar stops it in its tracks, and G2 won't lose their mid-tier 1.
It's interesting that G2 have learned all this tech for interrupting the Herald. They used the Horn Q before, now the Trundle Pillar as well. KOI, though, with a nice collapse on the top side of the map to get another kill onto Broken Blade. Ooh. Supa, though, he's getting very low here. The thing is, it's left the Dragon completely exposed, and for Elyoya, this is a great situation. On the Lilia, he knows that he can easily solo this. Supa is keeping the mid-wave contested, meaning there's going to be no challenge, but G2 aren't going to not do anything in response as they set their sights on the tier 1 at the top player.
Trundle still does Trundle things when he's left alone in tower, so able to get Caps' help to take that one down, but looks like MKOI just going to set their sights on the mid lane. Labrov only resetting now, and I don't really think Sama can stick around on this turret if there's 3 members here.
It has the Feather Storm. There's a little bit of safety, but even with the Blade Call, it's going to be hard to clear this out. You can see he's down to about half HP, but in the end, MKOI don't want to push their luck any further. Haven't had a chance to reset since that slew of action earlier on. Supa stepping in here. Blade Caller, only 2 blades coming back, so Sama won't be able to get the root. Myrwn trying to get away from this with the Rocket Belt, but Labrov and SkewMond are here quickly to collapse. The feats of warfare go over to G2, claiming their 3rd kill of the match.
Good collapse from G2, catching out Myrwn as he started to step up. No flash available, and now G2 starting to move into the jungle here. See if they can steal away a few of these camps, get that bot lane turret. Try and set up Broken Blade for a little bit more success, and what it's not been the best of times for him in the matchup.
That's just a tempo-stopping Glacial Fisher right there. It's like, excuse me, Alvaro, you are not allowed to back. I see you're low on mana. We have Gwen pushing in the bot lane. We are going to keep this pressure up. Sama catches the wave in mid. It might be a tier 2 on the bot side for G2. Meanwhile, Jojo pushing through top, doesn't have the teleport available.
Yeah, I don't know if they can get the tower with the Frozen Domain already done from SkewMond, actually. But no one really here. Yeah, it's just gone. Frozen Domain back, yeah.
The power of putting those extra points into the W. G2 get their tier 2, and with it about a 2,000 gold lead as Jojo answered with only 1 tower in response. Pings come out from MKOI though towards that mid lane turret, thinking that if they can get this wave in quickly enough, maybe they can crack through the tier 1 of G2.
So, of course, Jojo's been sitting on the blade for a little while now, but Caps just goes back to base and he picks himself up a death cap.
Yeah.
2nd item death cap for the Annie. If you thought that he was lethal before, I promise you he is lethal now.
He did this against Fnatic as well. Went Malignant's Death Cap Void Staff in that game where Humanoid got miles ahead of him in the early game.
We call this the Season 1 build.
Yeah.
Okay? You just...
But Malignant?
Okay, listen, guys. Can you just, you know what I mean?
There's another 1 in brackets beside that to say 11.
Yeah. It's the one-shot build, okay? It's all damage all the time.
It would be a Deathfire Grasp if it could.
Exactly. There you go. It would have been a Deathfire Grasp. Now, of course, this damage is scary, but that's only if he can land it. And that's going to be the big question, because as we've talked extensively, G2 don't have the easiest engage tools. You've got a Trundle Pillar, you've got maybe a Flash Braum ult, and then of course there's Caps with his Flash available, providing that snap engage with the Flash ulti initiation. But connecting that onto the composition coming through from KOI is not going to be an easy thing to do, and I think that these objectives are why we're feeling a much slower game, because it's only really around these objectives that we are seeing these fights, unless it's a gank or a pick on a sideline.
Broken Blade continuing to push through bot side while Myrwn has grouped up with his team. Summer equalized. I think Myrwn was hoping that Hans would just instantly pop the Feather Storm there. Hans holds on to it, knowing that there wasn't too much collapse coming out from the rest of MKOI.
It's got the cleanse, flash, everything he kind of needed to, so even if it started to go a bit sideways, would have been fine, but still, you can kind of see G2 just using the fact that Broken Blade's going to be fine in the side lane to just keep putting up the pressure. I don't think there's really much else that they need to do right now. Just chill for Dragon.
Just trying to make sure that there's minimal vision for MKOI up towards this top side. SkewMond coming across as well. Elyoya on vision. Caps go. Oh, he's going all the way around. He's going all the way around the outside here. Myrwn's coming across as well. Oh, Caps now. Oh, how are you going to get out of this one? Good look for Myrwn. They know exactly where Myrwn is here. There's the first stun into the disintegrate. Myrwn flashes away. No concussive blows landing onto him. He will escape. Caps didn't go all out that time, didn't summon the bear.
But it is getting these tools down with 50 seconds until Dragon. You notice the Caps didn't use the Tibbers on the play. He was just looking to burn a summoner spell, because now, at that next engagement, he has his target. Try and kill Myrwn, set up then for G2 to take the fight afterwards in a 4v5.
Yeah, you're completely right. I think that it's also just great awareness of his damage, because he realizes, I don't think that by myself I have enough to kill Myrwn, especially if he has his flash available. So it's fine, I'll take the Summoner Spell. And as you rightly said, it now sets them up beautifully for the Dragon, spawning in 20 seconds. We'll see if KOI even decide to contest it. There's still that Ada tower in the bot lane that I'm sure they'd love to get, but they haven't really put many resources towards the bot side of the map. A lot of their vision has actually been invested on the top side. Of course, Adakan is alive. Perhaps they're considering an exchange, Adakan for the Dragon.
Yeah, Broken Blade has his teleport. MKOI trying to deny vision up towards this top side right now. Broken Blade's going to keep pushing in those waves. No tower in the mid lane for G2. So they have to step a little bit further back to defend this. SkewMond waiting around the corner here, down towards that bot side river. MKOI transitioning their pressure from top side to bot side.
Broken Blade going for the reset though. It already shoved that wave in, so now going to TP back in. Actually, it's going to be Caps who's TP into the play, so Broken Blade going to slowly walk. But again, like, the lack of engage and kind of triggers to pull makes it difficult for kind of both sides to do anything. So Broken Blade just going to walk it back out. It'll be G2 start the Dragon.
There's a little bit of vision for G2 up towards the tri-bush in the top side. You can see a couple of pings coming out from MKOI, maybe thinking we can sneak away this Adakan while this happens. But Labrov there, smart enough to realize that MKOI were making their way towards that top side. And we'll clear out the vision. Hits Alvaro with a Winter's Bite. Once again, the game slows down a little bit as the second Drake of the game has been secured by both teams.
It's also because both sides are relatively squishy, right? So when you're trying to move, apart from Labrov, I'd say, but as you're trying to move in to get some sort of vision down, it's just very difficult to be able to force your way into that position, because if you do walk into Elyoya, he will tear through you, especially even with SkewMond going towards this more armor build. So you got to be very careful about how you do it. So everyone's flash ward is shallows.
For Myrwn again, they know their target, and Myrwn is locked up. The Flame Spitter not enough to burn through anyone on G2. Caps now 3-0.
Well, that's the payoff from getting the flash from earlier. As they catch him in the river with no means of escape, it opens up the Adakan. And it's an interesting game state just because there's so few engaged supports. The junglers aren't the best engaged tools. There's no tanky top lane to start the fights off. So this is what a lot of the game is. Finding picks, punishing summoner spells, and these small opportunities are how either side will be able to claim more on the map. Good news for Jojo is he finally gets access to this bot tier 1, but it's still very healthy. He's not going to be able to take it just yet. He's going to need at least one more wave.
I think it's also crucial for G2 that you're finding these picks without needing to use key summoner spells like the flashes. Like Cap still has his up and available, which means in 330, if you're looking at a potential dragon fight, you can still get that big flash engage from Cap. Same if Labrov needs to look for some sort of flash play. Like a lot of G2's flashes are crucial to that engage, and whereas for MKOI, well, maybe trying to avoid it is handy, but they're less reliant on a flash play.
Haven't really seen MKOI find one of those big plays yet, right? They found a couple in the early game in that side lane, managing to catch out Broken Blade a couple of times, but apart from that, it's been very much a game played around vision, played around who can catch someone else out on a recall time or on a positional mistake. And G2 have been the better team at that so far. However, for MKOI, their mid lane tier 1 still stands, and that gives them a lot more leeway on the map. Makes it a lot easier for them to actually force G2 back. Jojo, yeah, he hid, and he backed away.
It's a good point. I think that part of the reason why G2 can't find more picks is specifically because of this mid tower, but it's not like it's a similar situation to game 2 where their siege isn't the easiest, especially when playing into things like a Lilia and a Renata. The ability for them to just kind of turn your siege against you is a very scary prospect. So we find ourselves in a slow back and forth. Game 3. Reminder that the winner of this series will lock a spot at MSI representing Europe because they'll guarantee a top 2 finish. And of course, that means that you will be going to the LEC Spring Finals, which is ultimately what both of these teams are vying for. With G2 currently leading the series 2-0 up, KOI will have to find a reverse sweep, and they'll need to start it here.
Oh, handshake onto Alvaro, onto Labrov from Alvaro. Rayseeker hitting as well. There's the loading lullaby. Mikhail's away from it by Labrov on himself. SkewMond tanky enough to survive through that short nap.
a good play though, because again, this is kind of the tools that MKOI have to try and start something, and they're going to rely now on Jojopyun to push in on this bottom side, look for the trade on the towers, but not really much that can happen.
Oh, Alvaro steps forward again, has to burn the flash, but the Tibbers is there to follow up, equalizer out, TP coming in from Jojo, as MKOI look for a little bit more, but I don't think they're going to find it. Second time we've seen Alvaro caught out just around that corner in this series. SkewMond able to dodge away from the Q3 out of Jojo. All this while, Broken Blade pushing in that top lane, has a wave crashing on the tier 2.
And this is what I was talking about. MKOI are so squishy. Trying to retake vision is incredibly dangerous for them with Broken Blade.
He stayed around a long time here. Needle work, dodges the fake seal, skip and slash, looking for the slows. Killer Instinct not going to come in quite yet, as there's the exhaust, but there's the Killer Instinct from Supa. And BB just oversteps.
Completely agree, Medic. There was no need for him to try and hit the tower an additional time. He didn't respect MKOI's positioning in the topside jungle. With the Baron alive, I wonder if KOI will consider leveraging the numbers advantage to force this objective. That might be why G2 is still hovering around. Caps will have the Tibbers up very soon, if it's not up already. And they're maintaining this mid-wave control.
Glacial Fissure. Oh. And Nat's Whisker between that and hitting Supa. Doesn't connect. And because of that, G2 don't really have an avenue into the fight. Swalsey dodged to the side.
Crucially though, it let Jojo pick up a wave, reset, and pick up the QSS as well. So now he's going to be a little bit less vulnerable to that CC train from G2. Well, notably Caps as well, and give him the ability to snap back. So you're starting to see kind of key pickups on the items for MKOI, especially with 3 items now for Supa start to come through.
MKOI in a good spot, let's be honest. 1,000 gold behind is nothing too substantial at this point. 3 items on Supa. Jojo has a QSS for himself as well. You've got the Cosmic Drive and the Leandries already complete on Elyoya. Yes, Myrwn's damage will fall off a little bit as the game goes on, but the rest of the team in a prime position to grasp this game out of G2's hands. Jojo dashing forward again. Gets away before the concussive blows connect.
MKOI need to start something though. Broken Blade again in the side lane has the TP available, and MKOI aren't really strong enough to just go into the pit and start it. That just sets you up for a big ol' anti-stun, so it kind of makes this push and pull very difficult for MKOI to deal with when Broken Blade has already got 2 items himself.
This is why in draft we said these are very weird comps.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
no one has
exactly
hard engage.
it's very hard to do things, so a lot of this game is about wave management and, oh, this person's here, that means we can do this. And you have to be super aware of what you can and cannot do, and it's going to be those opportunities that ultimately decide the outcome of this game. SkewMond testing the waters in the river. The tower finally going to drop 30 minutes in. The G2 will finally take down that structure. All the while, Broken Blade has been left isolated in a side lane. The farm is even, but it's Broken Blade that is 1.3k gold ahead. He likely has a pretty nice base. Yep, there's a needlessly large rod that he's going to go back to base and grab.
But that's the thing.
This changed it to a Seekers.
Okay. Yeah, but this is where you get to a point where you just start to take over the matchup as Broken Blade, and it becomes way more difficult for Myrwn to go toe-to-toe as
Jojo looking for something. Tibbers coming out as they try and get onto Alvaro, but the hostile takeover is gonna change their minds. Fate Seal to take over from MKOI. Broken Blade will get Alvaro on the backside. SkewMond looking for if he can get back and help his top laner. The Seekers already paying off for BB as he dives onto Supa. But the moment of silence was not enough for Broken Blade. G2 lose 3 in the fight. MKOI turn their eyes towards the Baron.
Jojo really clutched up in that play, getting a 2-man knock-up into the ulti to then have Alvaro's ulti fly over the entire G2 roster. SkewMond fishing for a steal. He has the flash available.
As a control ward as well, puts it into the pit right now. Elyoya will clear that out as quickly as possible. Jojo jumps across the wall, feathers fly from Hansama, and in flies Supa. SkewMond flashes towards his red buff pit, but that pillar of filth is not filthy at all. MKOI, a delayed ace onto G2. They'll claim the Baron and they'll claim the gold lead.
it was a long, hard-fought game, but MKOI may have just broken it open. Betty called it the plays here from Jojo, but the engage onto Alvaro is so bizarre to me. It's the fact that you end up going onto the support where you don't really have the burst. Alvaro then is able to set up for this great ultimate across the top, thanks to Jojo being able to set him up. And sure, Broken Blade ends up getting Alvaro, but he's also gone so deep for this fight, and he's kind of hoping that maybe he can split up MKOI with SkewMond using the pillar, but it just doesn't really do very much.
What I loved about that play from Jojo as well is that he stacked the Q on Tibbers. And so it was the initial engage that I believe G2 thought that they could just one-shot Alvaro. They think he's a level 12 Renata, I'm a level 16 Annie, I've got 3 items completed, this should be an easy one-shot. But they actually didn't have enough damage to kill him instantly. Meaning that once they're in that position, once they've committed, there's no getting out, and MKOI find an amazing punish.
And it's also going to get more difficult to try and find those one-shot potentials, because you've got both the Locket and the Redemption now finished on towards Alvaro, which just helps to keep his team bolstered and keep them stocked up. And at this stage, it kind of feels like G2 are throwing everything in the kitchen sink, but they're just not finding what they need.
QSS already on Supa, so he is very safe. Even if that Tibbers comes down, his ability to disengage for himself.
It's also the fact it's now a Mountain Soul in a minute's time for MKOI. The burst potential just isn't really sticking for G2 alongside everything else we just talked about. So G2 desperately need to interrupt this Dragon stacking, and maybe Broken Blade in the side lane can draw enough people there, but it feels like still a bit of a long shot.
Trying to get that wave shoved in. MKOI with 5 members in the mid lane, and that bot side river. Broken Blade about to back, doesn't have the teleport right now. Jojo going towards that bot lane to push out the wave. Myrwn will complete his recall, gets himself a Bloodletter's Curse, which, although it was bugged a few patches ago, is now working fine as far as I can tell. Does the damage to all of the opponents that it hits. Pillar coming out from SkewMond for a little bit of vision. Jojo coming up through the river. Myrwn looking for a flank position, currently around the Razor Beaks. Looking for the Electro Harpoons, can't quite connect on them. Broken Blade now joins the Barney as G2 realize this is their moment to fight. Baron expires in 40 seconds time. The Drake up in 1. SkewMond stepping forward through that frozen domain. Myrwn still looking for the equalizer. The Drake down to 9,000 HP as Alvaro's first target. Hot dog takeover blocked by Labrov. Dodges away from the needlework. The loading lullaby used as well. The Dragon still at 8,000. Redemption coming out as Labrov is healed up. Handshaken back though and falls to the equalizer. G2 lose their support and can't find a way into the fight. Jojo dives forward and immediately locks up 2. Myrwn finds a double. Supa finds the third. SkewMond next on the menu. Make it 4. The Tibbers chasing Supa through the supercharge won't be enough, and now Caps is in a 1v1 versus Elyoya. He doesn't need to kill him, he just needs to delay. The blooming burst across the wall. Elyoya, watch out! Eep! Caps is down, an ace for MKOI, and the base in their eyes.
A perfectly played team fight from MKOI. The layering of the CC, the way that they just picked apart G2. MKOI looking to begin their reverse sweep.
In English, we say reverse sweep. In Spanish, we say reverse sweep, apparently, as MKOI will find a win in this series. Labrov trying to do everything he can to delay, but we are going to game 4 as MKOI stands strong.
Jojo steps up huge on the Yone to catch out G2 and set them up to go to game number 4.
I'm going to go do a short break before we get back for the rest of this series. Don't you dare go anywhere.